a basic beginner's guide to Affinity Photo. So go to File and New. If you've got no documents, nothing, go to File and New and create a document. What you need, one of these ones. Got a load of presets, got photo, press ready, print. So if you're working with print, go here, set that. So I'm just going to default to a web one, but there's other options of course there. You can select one. So just simply select a preset you want to work with. So select that and you can see what happens. It will set this layout side, all the various values, 1280, etc. You can change them. If you want it to be, instead of that, 3000, just change it. Also, you can change the colour format. There's a variety of different colour formats. Probably best to stick with RGB if you're using it with, say, web pages, etc. So once you're happy with that, click create. Just go down there and create, and you straight away you've got your document, and then you can continue to work with it, apply effects, etc. However, more likely you probably got, say, an image you want to work with. Go to File and Open. So File and Open, or if you've been using one recently, of course, you've got here, you'll have a number of files in here. Open recent, super useful, so you can quickly access your JPEG files, etc. But File Open, so that. Now you should be able to load like PSD, JPEGs, GIFs, PNG, and many, many other formats. Affinity Photo has also got its own format. That's AF Photo. That's super useful, and that's what you save. So I'm just going to say click there, and let's just go there so I can actually click it and click open. So open that document, and you can see now this is obviously an image of Oxford Street in London, and you can manipulate this. You got over here layers panel. Now where are panels? Well, in Photoshop you'll find them in Window. In Affinity Photo it's in View menu and Studio. So you just go down here, View and Studio, and you've got all of the panels there. So there's layers, and that's probably one of the key panels to have open. You've also got colour and also swatches, etc. But I would say layers is super useful. So layers panel. Now you've also noticed over here, you've got this tools, set of tools. Again, View menu is probably the most useful along with File. You've got here Show Context Toolbar, so you can deselect that, or View, Show Context Toolbar, and you get variety of, tells you the size, all those sorts of things, the unit, pixels, etc. You may or may not need that, but it's there if you want it. You can also go to View and Show Toolbar. Now the toolbar is another one along the top here, and if you select different tools, you got here View, Show Context Toolbar. If I remove that, then you end up losing everything. So I think personally it's probably best to keep it View and Show Toolbar, View and Show Context Toolbar. Super useful to have all the features, but if you're running out of space and you want to reduce it down a bit, that's probably a good thing. Also, you can do exactly the same here, View and Show Tools, not, or Show Tools again. And you can also customize tools. So you can go to View, and there's a customize tools as well. So you can add some more tools or remove tools if you don't want that many tools. As mentioned, the layers panel over here is probably the key panel. Virtually every application uses layers now, and layers here, you can see this one is locked. You've got a little lock there. When you open a document, you will probably see a little lock. Well, you can click there and unlock it. And you think, well, that's not much use. Now, the lock-in does not, if you've got it locked, it doesn't stop you working with filters, etc. It's just for transformation purposes. So you've got here transformation. You can see that is the background. Transparency. And you can resize. Once you've done that, you can go there, resize it, move it around. You can also rotate it. And the key thing is these points are there. Also, again, you can rotate it there, just on that white one there. You can also share the image. So you can just move that around, reposition it if you want. Also, what you can do is you can go to Layer menu, and it's quite a useful selection of things. You've got here Layer and Duplicate. So I can duplicate that layer, and you can see you get two now. You can also, of course, go over here and create a layer and a new layer, and that will be a blank, fresh layer that you can work with as if you've got like a new document. So it's a fresh layer that you can work with. But here I've got this one here. Now, Layers panel, you've got here opacity, so you can change the opacity, so you can make it fade or not. You can also go over here and you can change the blending modes, and you can change those. Now, please check out my other videos on all things like blending modes, opacity, etc. But you've got a whole range of different options you can change for those. Also, you've got another sort of toolbar along the bottom as well. You've got here masks. You've also got adjustments. You've got effects. You can go quickly click there. And they're basically buttons that you can just click and it will bring up a panel. And say you want 3D, just go to the 3D section and you can then add a 3D effect. Now it's not 3D in terms of like a standard 3D application. You can create very quick 3D effect that way. You can also add a mask to it. So go over here and you've got mask layer. Just click with that one selected. And that's a key thing. If you want to work with the layer, select it. So make sure it's selected, then go click there and now it's got a mask. Now at the moment there's no difference. So go over here, maybe go to the brush tool and you can add masks and change things in multiple ways, but just go to the brush tool and you can add, say, black. So black, and you can see as you do that, there's the thing, it cuts through. So you can see the result there in the mask and you can apply. Now, if you want to bring it the other way, black is the key one there so you can cut through. You can go to white and it will put it back. So you can go bring back more. And you can see as I move that around, so I move that around, you can see through the image, you can see the brush has gone there with the bus there. And you can move that back and forth. And you can always delete it or remove it. Now, all of these can be removed simply just by going over here. So if you decide, you know what, I don't want that layer at all, just deselect it that way. Now you'll see it's still there, but it hasn't removed anything. The mask, obviously, there's selected, and you can deselect that as well. So if you deselect the mask, you suddenly see, so the mask is still there, but it's just not being used because you've deselected it. And you can do exactly the same with the background layer. So if you don't want the background layer, you can deselect that as well. Simply just go to this bit here. Now you'll notice also you can expand those as well. Also what you can do is if you want to group things, so you can select those layers. Now layers can be individual, which is super useful, so you can work with sort of multiple 100 layers. You might turn around and say, well, I want these ones to be together. You can, there's a context, so you can go there, you can right click and then you can say group. So you can group them. So you've got them grouped now. So layers there, it's no particular, they're still disconnected. You can still apply effects, you can still modify things, but it's just grouped just for ease of moving around. So you've got there, you can move it as a group or you can move individually. However, let's just remove this one now because I don't want that layer there blocking the way. You can always delete a layer simply by pressing the delete key or go down to the bottom and delete it here. There's a little remove layer. Now, obviously, if I do that, you've got it removed. However, luckily, you can always undo. So edit menu and undo, and it tells you undo, delete background. So it brings it back. So you've got it back, and now you can continue to work with that. You can rotate that around and continue. And well, what you can also do is you can apply filters to this. So you've got this image, perfectly reasonable image, but I'm going to change it in a bit. Now, unfortunately, the color features here are there's not a vast number of colors. And these are more filter effects of colors. If you want to change the colors, what you need are adjustment layers. So filters, and say go for Gaussian blur. So Gaussian blur, and you can select any of these ones. So blur, Gaussian blur, and what you get, now you always will get this. You get a panel, in most of the filters, you will get this panel. You'll get a panel and it will give you some options. So radius, and you can then change the radius. So you can obviously increase it. Also, you've got how it previews. So you can actually see, click there, you click there, and you get the bit that's, it's not actually showing it without any change, which is quite nice. Or you can go back to that one, or click that one, or you can go to this one. So you can obviously show that image, the blurred image, and there's obviously completely untouched. Personally, I generally always work with that. It's nice to see the preview, but you can, if you want, just change that. And once you're happy with it, you can click apply. However, you notice there, if I hover over outside of this, if I hover there, many of the filter tools in Affinity Photo. That's great because they've got this great sort of, you can interactively change the blur. So you can drag across the document and quite often change the settings well above what you get from the slider. So the slider sets it to 100. But what you can also do is you can say 300. You can enter 300 there. You can really blur it, or you can use that. Just use it interactive by moving across. You've also got filters. You've got noise, so you can add some noise to the image. So noise, so it makes it a bit rougher. And again, you can vary that, set it up to obviously 100%, apply. Now, one thing you can do, as in many applications, is you can always go to the top and there's filters and repeat add noise. So if you want to apply it again, so you might say, well, that noise isn't that great. It's just like, I can still see, I want to apply it, you can apply it again. Very quickly, simply just reapply multiple times to completely obscure your image. So you've got that, filters, and there's a variety of different ones. Now colours, there's a range of colours. However, you can manipulate the colour via layer menu and new adjustment layer and a number of different adjustments. Now adjustments are great because they're live and you can tweak them, modify and delete them, and it doesn't alter the underlying image. So what you can do, just go for recolor. So recolor there, and this is a layer exactly the same as before. All layers can be moved around, added to groups, moved above, moved around, etc. So you've got here your recolor. And you can see this one defaults to red, and you can change the color like that. You just move the slider back and forth. So you can go for blue, maybe change the saturation. So you want a very nice sort of blue effect there. Maybe change the lightness, maybe make it brighter. And you can also modify blending modes. And that's exactly the same as the blending modes over here in the layers. And that is working on the layers below. Anything also within a group. So if you've got a group, the colours are worked on in that group alone. So if you've got some other image, some other effect, etc. below, but in a different group, well, it's not going to be modified. So it's just for this group and anything below it in this group. So close that, and you can reopen it at any time and it's still live. So you can still just double click. So just double click it and it will bring up this panel again, the recolor. And you can think, oh, I want it to be green, or I want it to be sepia, or whatever. You can just change it like that, change the saturation to create a nice sepia effect. And you'll notice there's also an option, add preset, up top. So add preset, quickly show you that panel. So add preset, as with everything else in Affinity Photo, view and studio, and down here, adjustment. So just click that. Now, of course, if you've already got the panel open, it will clear it. So adjustment there brings it back. I often do that when it's cleared, because you might not see it. You might look at it and think, oh, where is it? Well, here it is. So adjustment. And what you can do, you can expand this out. So I went for recolor at this point. And you can see if you go down there, you've got a load of different options here, recolor. So if I click on that, HSL, you've got presets. Great, because you can just say, well, I don't want that sepia, core sepia. I just select that one. And again, there. Because you've got that one selected, it doesn't change. It doesn't create a new one, which is useful. So again, you can just go through it and maybe go for add there. You've got a blue one and you can see the effect there. They're just simple presets, but you can add to your presets by that option that I said with. So if I click there, add preset, you can change that and you can go, well, I want to add a preset. So I'm just going to go with, say, a blue preset. Blue one. Click OK. And now you can see you've got your preset there. And you've got exactly the same as before with that little gear. You can modify the gear and you can change the settings there. And you can close that and then close that. And you can always remove it. So if you don't want that layer, now this layer has got no pixel information in it. You can't apply things and modify things in exactly the same way as you can with many other layers. But some layers are sort of like just an overlay without any actual substance, just got the actual effect. And you can remove it just by clicking there, or if you want you can move it around, you can do many other things. Obviously, if it's below, it doesn't affect that thing. So if you just put it above again, you can see it affects it, drag it and put it below. And you can move them around back and forth, your heart's content. You can also go down the bottom and you can just delete it. So there it's gone. So you've got adjustments there. Layers there, you can go down. Also, you've got many other types of layers. So you've got these adjustments, which are great for changing the colour. And you can tweak the colour in thousands of different ways. So if you want to manipulate colours, best, layer, new adjustment, and all these ones, recolor, vibrance, colour balance, just go through those. And I say presets, adjustment presets are really a great starting point. So you can see you've got other ones and you can just click there, and again that will add a preset there. Posterize, click one there, and that will add that, and you can see they're added quickly that way, and you can remove them just as easily as well. What you can also do, go to layer, and you can see you've got here a new fill layer, you've got a new pattern layer, you've got a new pattern layer from selection, so you can create pattern layers that can be manipulated separately from your pixel. They are again a slightly different form of layer, but they are pixel information. It's just you can then create seamless design. So with that one selected, and this is the key thing always in Affinity Photo, with it selected, go from new pattern layer from selection. Now at this point it doesn't look like it's done much. Before I resize the pattern layer, and you can see Affinity Photo helpfully calls it just pattern. You can rename as well. So any layers, if you decide, oh, that's not very useful, not very so you can always click on there and say Oxford Street pattern. So you can just rename it. Very quick and easy. And a gap pattern can be manipulated again, as with everything. You can always go down there and you can simply delete it. Or delete the right one would help. You can always bring it back, you always undo. So select that, select it, and then delete. Also you can go to layer, and you've also got this one, new live filter layer. Now, I've already shown you filters. Filters are great, but filters are destructive effects. So if I go over here, filter, and I apply, say, a blur, Gaussian blur, and I'll just do Gaussian blur, that's it. Basically, it's modified the image. You can undo, of course. You can always go to edit and undo the Gaussian blur. But if you don't want it to be destructive, you don't want to just make certain it's like, oh, I might change my mind later. What you can always do is go to layer. Now, not every filter is in this new live filter layer. So you'll find if you go to distort, some like the deform and things are not there. Now that may change in future versions. I don't know. Certain ones have been added, so it's possible that that list will change at some point. So you can go say blur and Gaussian blur. It's a live filter effect, and you can then just change the radius. Also preserve alpha, you can see that will improve the edge just by doing that. You got that. And you can change blend modes, run through that, and you can create a variety of different designs. And again, close it, close the panel, and you can always go over here and you can always change it. So the Gaussian blur, you see, I don't want that Gaussian blur, simply just delete it or turn it off. So you can remove the effect. So it's a live effect, doesn't change the underlying image there. Obviously, if you've got it applied, you can, with all layers, with all of the layers, what you can do, you can always go to a layer and you can merge down or merge visible. So you can just say select, you don't have to select it, just say merge visible, and everything that's in the current visible image will be merged together. So sometimes the result's not what you expect. But you can always undo again. That's the key thing. So you've got this pixel layer now, and you can remove these other layers if you don't want them. So you can always delete them or deselect. That's a useful feature of Affinity Photo. You can just deselect them, and then they're still there. So when you save, this information is also saved. Everything is saved and stored. So you've got here the pixel layer now. You can also, if you decide, you know what, I don't want it part of the group, you can always drag out and move it outside of that group. And you can then work with this image and continue to maybe apply other effects, other live filter layers, etc. You can also delete, duplicate. There's also duplicate link. There's many other features. You can lock it, so you can again make it like a background layer by just doing lock, or you can unlock everything. You can also rasterize. You can also add some more color to your image using gradients. There's a couple of ways of using gradients in Affinity Photo. I'm just going to go over here to the gradient tool. You can find that in the tools panel. select that. However, you will need a layer. You can see at the moment there's no layer. So just go to Layer and New Layer. You always need a layer with Affinity Photo. Simply apply it. And the default is white to black, or maybe white to another colour. And you can move it around. You can also change the type, so you don't have to keep it as the default one of linear. Maybe go for radial instead. Nice circular design. Now you can change that. You can make it very, very close. You can resize it, position it in all kinds of different ways. However, if you go off the tool and then you come back to it, so you come back to the gradient tool, basically you have to start again. So it's slightly limited. A much better way of using it is just going to go over here now to Layer and New Fill Layer. That's the reason I'm putting it in this section, because it's a layer. So New Fill Layer, and now what you've got, it's still a gradient layer or a solid colour. Basically it's a solid colour, so it's one gradient to another gradient, it's exactly the same colour. But you can change it to linear. You've got exactly the same elliptical, radial, conical and bitmap. Now I'm just going to go with linear, for example. And what you can do, you can just move it across there and you can then change the colours. However, the thing is with this, is if you go off this, do some other work, go and apply effects, etc. to other images, and you come back, you go back to this gradient tool, again select this layer. It's a specific layer for gradients. This is remembered. You don't have to sort of go and reset it again. And then what you can do with these gradients, you can add additional. So at the moment, it's just got two colours. You've got this purple to a slightly darker purple. But you can always go over along this line, and that's the key thing, just along that line, and you will see a little plus. And then you can just add another stop. You can change the colour over here then. Just go here and maybe change it to green. Or go again, click a little plus there, and again, bring up the colours and change it maybe to that. You can also change it up here as well. You can see there's a little panel there, and you've got the same settings there, and you can move them back and forth there. And you can also tweak things such as position, the midpoint. Now the midpoint is this option here. Now you might think, well, what's that? Well, it's basically makes it more focused at a particular colour. So if you push that midpoint, you can just drag it towards the green, and it just gets sharper towards that green. Or you can go the other way, and you can see what happens. It's on top of that. So let's just go to this one, probably easier. It's decided to, so you can see the purple just increases all the way over towards that one, or you can go the other way and make it more yellow. You can just use that midpoint, so it just makes it more that colour or more that colour. Move it backwards and forwards, and you can modify it here as well, so you can just change it there, which makes it easy if you can't actually select it, like that one where you suddenly go on it and you find you can't select it. Well, you can always select it here, so you can move it that way. Sometimes certain controls, when you go on them, you find you can't access it, and it might be easier just to go to a slider if available. So you've got this gradient, and again, at any point, you can always go back to it, modify it again. So select it, again, go to the gradient tool and interactively change that setting. And it's always still got that value, all those values, so you're not going to lose them. What you can also do is you can duplicate this thing. As with any layer, all layers can be duplicated. So you can just go to Layer and Duplicate. So duplicate layer, and you'll notice what happens. You get two gradients, and you've got exactly the same control, but this time, because I'm selecting only that gradient, that layer there, I'm moving that one, not moving that one. That was the original one. That remains exactly the same position, so you can move that. However, at this point, you can't see the one that's lower. But as with any blend layer, you can apply blending. So just go down here and you can select maybe screen, and you can see through and see that other design. So you can select that one and you can see that line, and you can move that, and you can see what happens. You end up being able to make much more complex designs, much more complex gradient designs. And once you're happy with that, you can do exactly the same as with any layer. You can always say layer and merge visible, and that will all be merged into a single pixel layer. And then you can, of course, always go back to the other ones if you want to and work them again and remove that one if you want. You can always deselect at any point just on that little click there. Let's go to shapes. So here's shapes. Many applications have got vector features. I think this is pretty good. Affinity Designer, if you've got Affinity Designer, that's got a lot more features for manipulating vector shapes, but Affinity Photo is pretty good with these. So I'm just going to select one of them, and it's a vector design, so it can be any size. Now these can't be any size. Well, they can be any size, but they just look worse and worse as you make them bigger and bigger or do various things to them. But with a vector shape, you can just apply a vector shape to a document just like that, and you see exactly the same as before. It's a layer. It's a standard layer. See it over the layers panel. So you've got here arrow, and you can manipulate in exactly the same way. Resize it, rotate it. However, it's not a pixel design. You can turn it into a pixel design. Simply go to layer, and you can merge it with the document, exactly the same as before. You can also rasterize it, so you can turn it into a solid layer. One that you can't manipulate any further as a vector. So I'm not going to do that, but you can do that. You'll notice when you've got that selected, got the shape, again with every tool, you've got all these options along here. And you can also tweak things. You also notice over here, you've got little red dots on this arrow design. And there's a lot of different things. So you've got ellipse, rounded rectangles, triangles, you've got squares, stars, arrow, donuts, not actual donuts, but you've got pie tool, segment tool, crescents, and many more. And you can manipulate them. All got their own interactive tools. So even though it looks like that they're very limited, that there's only that range of tools, you can manipulate the tools and designs in many different ways, and you can just change that, reposition it. So you can create a lot of different shape designs from one basic shape design. And again, it's still vector design. Also, what you can do, once you're happy with your design, say you've created something, you've got your thing, you can also just go over here and convert to curves. Little option up the top. You can also right click and go down to convert to curves as well. So convert to curves just will convert it into a curve. Now curves are like paths. Basically it's now this is one feature of Affinity. Sometimes the mouse will move. You can always reposition just by using this hand tool. Simply just go to this hand tool and reposition it. You can also zoom in as well. So you can just click over here to this little magnifying glass. So you can just zoom in. However, this vector design now, basically you've lost the ability to change. You notice along the top, there's only options now are to change the colour. So you can just change the colour like that. You can change the stroke, maybe make it black, change the size. So you can make different sizes like that. But also what you got, go over here, you've got a node tool. So the node tool, you can manipulate these little points. These are nodes. That's what it calls it in Affinity Photo. Same in Designer as well. Other applications maybe call them different other things. So anchor points or whatever. There's a whole variety of different names for these. But you've got nodes in here. And you can click on anywhere and just change the general design. And you can also fill it. Obviously this, you got here, you notice a fill. So I've got red at the moment. So if I go there, you can just change the colour. You can also change it to a gradient. So go to the gradient tool and you can add a gradient design. Nice colour. So from black to red. So again, you go up here, got various colours there. You can change there. It lets me edit that. Doesn't always. Anyway, there it is. Comes up eventually. Sometimes that's one feature in Affinity Photo I always find that I should point out. Sometimes some of the panels do not want to appear. They do sometimes. They have a mind of their own sometimes. However, once you've got that, you've got to change the colours. You can also, of course, delete. You can duplicate as well. You can have more than one shape on the document. So if you want to, go over here to Layer. And there's shortcuts as well. You don't have to use the menu. So the menu is useful, but you can learn this. You can duplicate. But you can also hold down the Alt Option key and duplicate the design and so on and so on. So you can create multiple copies very quickly. There's a lot of ways of doing things. And also you can, again, press the delete key and you can remove that design. Now, another thing, selections. So say you want here, you've got a selection. Selections, bit like masks to a degree, but say you select this part of the image, got that selected, and you just want, and there's a whole load of different selection features. So you've got rectangular marquee tool, weirdly called marquee tool. I'm not certain why that is, probably historical reasons, but you've got here rectangular marquee tool, elliptical marquee tool, so you can create a circular design, so you can just add circle like that. Now, you can see that these are like marching ants, they're called, marching ants around here. And what happens is now any effect, etc., or brush strokes, etc., are only applied to that selection. So if I go over here to the brush tool, say, or the filters, so blur again, so filters, blur and Gaussian blur, apply Gaussian blur, that Gaussian blur is only applied to that selection. And you can create selections of all different shapes and designs, so you can manipulate it in many ways. So that's quite useful. So I'm just going to undo that and remove it. If you don't want the selection, just go to select and deselect. You can see there's a whole range of different selection features, so you don't have to just select circular designs like that, or rectangles or freehand ones. You've got options here for color ranges, so you can select all the reds. So select all the reds, you can see all the reds are selected, which is great. So I'm just going to now undo that. Affinity Photo comes with a whole range of brush tools. You can find them all in the tools panel. Just go over here and select, say, paintbrush tool, colour replacement brush tool, etc. There's also smudge, erase, blur and many others. When you select, say, the paintbrush tool, got a whole range of options along here in the toolbar, such as the width, opacity, hardness, stabilizer, symmetry, etc. A key panel to use, brushes. So simply go over to the brushes. You can find that in the view menu, studio and brushes. And there's a whole range of different ones. You've got oils, acrylics, basic, dry media and many others. So I'm just going to select one of those, and also what I can do, I can select a colour. Now the current colour is blue. You can see that over here in the tools, but you can just say select a different one there, say go for red, and then just apply it. And you can see what happens. It just generates a brush stroke across there. And what you can do, you can vary it in numerous ways. So just go up here and say, well, I don't want that. I want opacity, say 29. So it's a lot less. So just apply it. It's much more subtle brush stroke, which you may want, and just maybe apply it a couple of times. It creates a much nicer brush stroke than that really solid, high impact brush that way. Also what you've got blend modes. You can change those. Maybe you want sort of get a darker image there. So darken. Use that and then just apply that. You can also again change colour. You don't have to use just red or green or black. So go for blue and just apply that. And as you can see, as you apply over there, just depending on the blend modes, result will be different. So just go for, say, lighten. And as you do that, you see it will get slightly lighter. Now it doesn't go all the way back to white. And of course it might do if you're depending on the actual brush, but I'm just going to go with another one, and you can see the result of that as you layer it over and over again. And again, you can vary the opacity. You can also vary the flow, so you can just reduce it down so it's just not applied, so you just less. But what you can also do, you've got here, just go over here to one of the brushes, any of the brushes, and you can double click on it. Double click, and you can modify the brush. Now you've got here size. Now you'll notice there the size, the width. That's weird. It says size there, width over there. It's the same. So if you change that, say, to 192, you'll notice that goes to 192 as well. So it does modify. And some of these other settings you will see change as well. So spacing you can modify. Now some are not available here. They're just available in this actual panel. And again, you can apply live on there. So you don't have to close this panel. So you can just continue to test, change things. So you can go and change the color as well. Maybe change the size. You've also noticed you've got dynamics. Now I've got a pen, an art pad and pen. Much useful when you're using brushes than obviously using a mouse. Though I use a mouse for the menus and those sort of things, go backwards and forwards, I always find it easier just to use brush strokes with the pen. And you can just apply it like that. Now what you can also do, once you've done that, you can change it. And obviously double click on that one and maybe apply different things. Go for different textures, different colours. Maybe if you want the variant colours, so you can just change the hue there, close, and then just apply it, and you can see what happens. You get this sort of nice sort of weird colour, greens, reds, etc. Now, as I mentioned, there are other brushes as well. So I've obviously been using the standard paintbrush tool, but you've also got, say, this one. Go down here to mix a brush, and that's really great for a whole range of different effects. So you can mix and you can see what happens. It mixes the colours. So you've got the colour, so I go for orange there. You've got orange and it just blends it, but after a while it will start blending in with the reds and so on and so on. So you can just create a variety of different designs simply by using this. And this is probably more useful maybe if you've got an image or something you want to smudge things in, but with the colour and the brush strokes you can do that. But it's just great for all kinds of things. I have to say, brushes in Affinity Photo are not perhaps as good as some applications. They're still pretty useful and there's a whole range of different options available. But if you're looking for others, maybe like Rebel, Clip Studio Paint and others, if you're using like for brush strokes and designs, or maybe Painter, Corel Paint is another one. But still, Affinity Photo has a decent selection. Also, you've got here, say like Smudge as well. So Smudge, now Smudge is quite slow sometimes. You can see as you do it, if you use a very big, there I've got 470 there, sometimes it can take a bit of processing. It's going to process a lot of pixels. You can also see what happens. It's got this pixel layer and it's only pixel layers. You're only using pixel layers. You can't paint on a vector design. Now you can, but you have to do a slightly different technique to actually paint on. So let's just go back to the paintbrush tool. So paintbrush tool, and you can see you've got this option here for symmetry. Symmetry is really great. So what you can do, you can select symmetry, just set that on and then just change symmetry. So let's just push that to say 4 or 5 and you can see what happens as I hover over there. You can see now I've got different brush strokes in different places. So let's just put that to black so you can actually see it. And what happens, that brush stroke now is applied there, all the way around. And you can create by simply just moving it around. It's just a nice symmetry effect. You've also got mirror as well. So if you want to mirror effect, now sometimes it does require a little bit of practice to work with this. So I'm just going to undo at that point. But I wanted to show you there's symmetry as well. There's also other options. You've got here more, which brings up again this panel. You can also use brush strokes on additional layers. So you can go up to here to layer and new layer. So you can create a new layer. You can see now you've got a completely empty layer. There's no pixels whatsoever on that layer. But again, you can go over to the brushes and apply again. Make certain you use the paintbrush tool and apply paintbrush tool there. And you can apply obviously. Now that is not applied to this initial layer. So you can, if you want, simply go to this, over to the move tool, and you can see what happens. You've got this layer now, which you can then move. So layers are a great feature that you can combine with brushes. So you can just move them around and also continue to paint with that. So you can continue to add more pixels to that design. And again, once you've done that, also, because over here, you'll notice a layer, you can apply effects to it. So you've got here options for modifying the color. You've also got, say, layer effects. So there's a little FX there. Bring up again this and say select 3D and modify that. And you can see what happens. You get a 3D effect there, maybe outer shadow. So you get a nice shadow effect. And again, close there. And you can still continue to apply the brush stroke. So it will have a nice three-dimensional effect. And again, you don't have to have that. Great thing about layers, if you're applying brush strokes to layers, is you can always also delete them as well. Again, you can always go here to layer and new layer and create another new layer and continue to apply brush strokes in different ways and move them around and much, much more. A helpful panel in Affinity Photo is the history panel. So view, studio and history. Here's the history panel and you can go through the panel and simply select different points here of all your work. So if you say, you know what, it was really good back at this position, but I did some things wrong, well, you can go back to it very quickly by going through there in the history panel. And again, up here, you've got positions. You can run through it and you can see all the different things. So I can pick straight back to the start point. Here's before I've done any work. So history panel, if you want to, is the ultimate undo in Affinity Photo. Now that's one feature that's really useful here. File and save history with document. So say you've done all your work, and let's just put it to that point with the blur, etc. Anywhere. All these settings you can set there. What you can do, you can always go to File and Save History with Document. It says Save with History. Enable and save means that anybody can send this document, etc., etc. You can enable it. Yes. So I'm going to do that. So File and Save As, or Save. That's the key thing. And the format it will save it to will be AF Photo. That's the Affinity Photo format. So just say Save As. So I'm just going to save it to AF Photo. And that will store my history, so I can come back into it later and it will have all my history. Now that makes a lot bigger file. So if you don't want that stored, all these changes, you can always unselect that. So we'll just go there, don't have it saved. I generally always have it on. Unless I'm running out of space on my machine, I think it's quite useful to have. So File, and now I'm going to go with Save As, and you can just save it. Only format that can be saved with the Save As is this. So AF Photo, so you've got AF Photo there. Now I'm not going to save it that, but that is quite a useful format. File and Export. So that's what you want if you want to save it to a different format. So File and Export. So go to File and Export, and you can see you've got a variety of different options. So you've got PNG, JPEG, so you can click on any of these ones. So just go through them: PNG, JPEG, GIF, TIFF, PSD, PDF, SVG, EPS, XR, some make TGA, probably not going to be used. But you've also got a load of different options. So you've got the size, you've got the JPEG preset, so you've got a variety of different presets, high quality, medium quality, etc. And also you've got here quality there. 100% is what I normally set. But also you've got here selection area, selection only, and much, much more. And there's also other options. So you can click more, and there's more various things there. Now I'm going to cancel there, but that's the way to save it to a JPEG, PSD, etc. Print. So if you want to print your document, it's down here, File and Print. Also you've got File and Share. So you've got Mail, Message, AirDrop, obviously depending on your operating system, what features will be there, Add to Photos, etc. And also you can set Desktop Picture as well. You can also save the current document in Affinity Photo. So go to File and Open, just to open a file. I'm just going to go with test.jpg. And now maybe apply some work to it, maybe a few modifications there, so you blur it, etc. Smudge it. And then you go to File and Save. Now you can save as, but the Save As will save it to AF Photo. What you want is Save. It will just save the current work. Now, if you don't want to do that, you don't want to lose your current file, just avoid the save and just use Save As or Export. I'm just go Save, and now this work is currently saved. Of course, if you change your mind and you think, well, I can always undo that smudge brush, and again, just go to File and Save again. So you can just save it and it's back to as before. But you can also acquire image. So if you've got a scanner, you've got here, or device that you want to bring files in, you've got there an option to acquire. Now I haven't, so I'm just going to close that, but that's another way to bring in files. But you've also got File and Place. And you've got here Placement Policy, Embedded. Now when you embed, you're making the file very large. That's the key thing. So you've also got linked there. So Place, and I'm going to go with Embed, so I'm just going to select that, not that one because that's the one I've got, but Open, and then you can position it, place it, and then move it, resize it. So that's an external image. Now that though is because of placement policy is embedded. So it doesn't matter what I do outside or anything like that. Any change here doesn't make any difference. But I can also have it linked. I don't particularly generally go for linked, but linked maybe is useful in some circumstances. But if you want to now, when you save it, you're saving this entire image as well as obviously the work you've been doing. So I'm just going to delete that now, but just wanted to point that out to you about the place. So you've got here arrange. That's another useful one. This is again for layers. So if you want to arrange, you can move things around. So if you've got, say, different shapes, so you've got, say, that shape, and that shape, you can create multiple shapes. With those, you can select those. So I'm selecting those layers, and you've got options here for arranging. So if you want to, you can align top, line middle, flip, and also you've got transformations as well. There's also text. Text is a layer as well. So text, you just go over here and you can see text tool. You've got artistic text and you also have got frame text. So if you go for artistic text, it will simply just click on the document and then you will notice along the top you get, and this is in the toolbar, you've got Arial, regular, and you can modify. Say you decide, you know what, I want a different font. Maybe you've got lots of different fonts on your system. Go for Arial Black, say. You can change the regular, change the size, maybe make it go for 30 points, and you can set the colour and much, much more. So you can just type something. So ABC, something like that. And then you can click the move tool and then you can manipulate that text. You can move it around, modify it in numerous ways. And you can see you've also got a menu over here. So text, and you've got a variety of different show character, show typography. I'm not going to run through those, but there's a lot of functionality that you can go for. Maybe change the spacing, tighten, so you can say there, tighten, so just tighten it a bit. Also text styles, create paragraph styles, insert characters, spelling, whole load of different options here, show all text, and much, much more. But what you've also got, again, it's a layer. It's exactly the same as the standard shape layer. It's a vector design, any size. Rotate it, move it around. You can also convert it to curves. So as soon as you do that though, convert it to curves, just up here, convert to curves, it will just become points or nodes, which still will be a layer and you can manipulate that layer. So again, you can apply effects to it. So you just go over here to the effects, click there, maybe go for 3D and just add a 3D effect. It's still live text. You can still modify it. Simply go over here to the tool, the artistic text tool, and maybe click inside that. So you can click at that position or that position, and then you can type 1, 2, 3. So you can modify it numerous ways. Also, we've got, and I'm going to remove it, delete it at any point. It's just a layer that can be deleted, hidden, etc. What you can also do, you go over here and you've got frame text. So frame text is slightly different because frame, you just drag out to the size that you want. It's like, again, like a shape, but this time it's a selection of, now by default there's nothing in it, exactly the same as the artistic. There's nothing in it until you type something. So you can type something, I'm just going to, whatever, you can just type anything, and I'm just obviously typing random letters, or you can use you've got options here, various things like text styles, insert filler text. You've got an option there for insert filler text. So if you just want to add some basic text, you can say insert and it will add some filler text. You don't have to have that. And again, exactly the same as before, you can manipulate the font. So you can go through and say, I want a different font, maybe Arial Black, or you can change the color. So you can click there, maybe you can make it red. And again, it's still exactly the same as before. It's a layer, all kinds of effects. This can be applied. So you can go down here, maybe add some outer shadow. So you can quickly add a radius there and you can manipulate that and you can still edit this text. So you can put something else in there and add some more or change them and so on and so on. Also what you can do is you can apply filters and effects like that. So just go to filters, maybe blur. Now as soon as you do that, the text is no longer text. It will become a pixel layer. So Gaussian blur, so blur and Gaussian blur, you can see you can blur it and then you can click apply. But again, pixel layer. So you've lost the ability to manipulate the text. So if you want to keep it as text, simply just keep it as frame text. It will say there, you can see it. With all these layers, what you'll see is a little thumbnail there that just indicates that it's still text and you can still manipulate it as such. You can vary it in numerous ways. Again, change the size. So you can just go there, want it like that. Maybe go for different, there's lots of different, I've got no styles, but you can add, if I add some styles, you can create styles. So you can maybe make it of a particular style, say with Arial, or maybe make a style with tighter and it's with Times New Roman, etc. So you can vary the text and manipulate it in many different ways. Probably if you're going to use text, you'll probably find that Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer will be probably better. When you open an image in Affinity Photo or any application, you can zoom in and you can see what the image is made of. So you've got here, you've got like blacks, whites, etc., greens, all kinds of colours. Now, each one of those pixels, this little square, is made up of a particular colour. And it will be like a red, a green and blue component of that. Well, you can split those. They're channels. So you've got over here channels. So you just go down here and you can find that in the view menu, studio and channels, and you can select composite red. So this will be the red component of this image. Now all the greens and the blue value has gone. So what you end up with is a grayscale value. I'm just going to quickly come out of that so you can go back again, zoom and zoom to fit so you can see the image. So you've got it as a grayscale image, and that is when you're in the red channel. You can move to the other channels. You can go to, say, green channel, and you see change to green. You can see, obviously, depending on the image, it will change. So the blue, with this image, it's near enough about the same. But you might have an image that's very, very red. And so when you go to that, you will see obviously a very strong image that's in the red, but the green and the blue will be virtually non-existent. And you can select these in there, say green and blue. And as you do that, the visibility there, you can see, and also what you can do, you can write to that channel. You can change it. You can use maybe like filters or other effects. You can maybe apply brush strokes, etc. So you can go to filters menu and go, say, to blur. So you can blur the red pixels or the green pixels, in this case composite green. So Gaussian blur, and I'm just going to blur those. So all of the green component of that pixel has been blurred. The red and the blue totally untouched. And so apply. Now you can go back here, and I'm just going to go for maybe the red channel. So the red channel totally untouched, blue channel totally untouched. And you also notice you've got an alpha channel and you can create additional channels, etc. However, I'm just going to put it back to standard RGB and you can see what happens. There's the end result. You've got a very blurred image, but you can now see obviously the green is nicely blurred and all the rest untouched. So I'm just going to undo that and you can put it back again to that. But that's using channels. Now you may open a document that's in a different color mode or image mode, and that will be CMYK or lab mode, grayscale, etc. Affinity Photo has got a load of guides, aids to help you with your design, such as show grid. Now you can show grid and you can see these lines applied. You can also modify the grid. You can also go to view and down to here to all the various guide managers, grid managers, so you can just modify them, maybe reposition, etc. Also, you've got options here for zoom. So you can zoom in and zoom out, maybe set it to 800% so you can really see it very closely. You can also use these tools over here. So you've got the hand tool and you can just move it around. So say you want to position it on that London bus, you can then just move it there. Also, say if you're drawing, etc., you might just want to go to view and rotate right. So you can angle it in a particular way to make it very easy to line things up or draw on that bus or whatever. You can also reset as well. So go to view and reset rotation. Also view, zoom, and maybe zoom to fit so you can see the image there. There's also a number of features to modify the various tool sets. All can be found in view. Also you can set up various presets for your panels as well here, studio presets. So you can set these ones, say like your history panel, your glyph browser, etc. If you want those to be in a particular studio setup, then you can just set up studio, add a preset for those panels to be in a particular location. Other options here, and also many variations you can do with those. Another helpful thing, help, always helpful, Affinity Photo help, and that will give vast amounts of information about the procedural texture filters, layers, and much more. been using Affinity Photo throughout. However, if you've got Publisher or Designer, what you can also do, you can edit this image in those as well. You can work seamlessly between those applications. So you can go to File and Edit in Designer. You can do various things in there and come back again into Photo and work around again with Publisher. Also what you've got is these personas. Now I've been using all the way through, I've used the Affinity Photo persona, but you can also go to these ones. Liquify, you've got Develop, you've got Tone Mapping. I'm just going to go say, click one of those. So go into there and you can see you get a completely different menu, completely different load of options over here, different panels, and you can modify your image, say, change that, contrast, tweak. So this is probably, if you don't want to use the adjustments, I showed you the adjustment layers for various color effects. Well, this gives a whole range of different color effects. So if you want to, just go into the develop and just modify your image using that. I'm not going to go with this. This is obviously that was probably for another tutorial. So cancel there. So that's it. A run through most of the basic features of Affinity Photo. Obviously, there's a lot more that can be covered in Affinity Photo. There's thousands of tutorials available online you can find. Also, many on my own channel, Graphicxtras. Also, if you've got any questions, comments, please put them below. Really great here. What sort of things would you like to see? What other sort of tutorials would you like to see? Be really great to hear back from you. Also, a like or dislike, always appreciated. Thank you much.